Imagine waking up tomorrow and realizing the money in your bank account is worth less. Your paycheck buys fewer groceries, your rent is higher, your savings are melting, and nobody warned you. Now, here's the terrifying truth. While you have been losing purchasing power every single day, the US government has secretly been hoarding bitcoins, billions of dollars of bitcoins. And if that doesn't scare you, it should, because that secret stash could reshape your saving, your job, and even the price of milk in your fridge. And here's the twist. These are the same officials who told you Bitcoin was dangerous, criminals' money, and bubble. They mock it, they regulated it, they warned you to stay away. But while you were told not to touch it, they were secretly stacking it behind your back. Today, the US government is one of the biggest Bitcoin whales in the world. Bigger than Tesla, bigger than El Salvador, bigger than the most nations. And that should terrify you, because if Bitcoin really is digital gold, then the people in charge have been lying to you while preparing to use it as a weapon. A weapon that could protect the dollar or destroy it. A weapon that could make or break your future even without you knowing it. This isn't just about crypto. This is about control. Whether the money in your pocket tomorrow will have the same value as it does today. And if you think the government will warn you before making their move, you haven't been paying attention. Tonight, we pull back the curtain on America's secret Bitcoin strategy. Why they are hoarding it, what they plan to do with it, and most importantly, what it means for your money, your job, and your future. Hi, and welcome back to the channel. This is a place where hidden battles, bizarre science, and strangest corner of history comes to light. The truth you were never supposed to know. The secret buried in plain sight, all exposed here. Because knowledge just isn't about power, it is about survival. And tonight's story may be the most shocking of all. But to understand why America went from mocking Bitcoin to hoarding it in secret, we need to go back to the moment Bitcoin itself was born, out of chaos, betrayal, and collapse. America's double game. If Bitcoin was supposed to be dangerous, why didn't the US destroy it? If it was criminals' money, why didn't they shut it down? Instead, they did something far more sinister. They attacked it in public while quietly hoarding it in private. When Bitcoin first appeared, Washington dismissed it as a joke. Politicians called it a scam. Bank CEOs laughed on live TV. Regulators warned you it was only for criminals. Even headlines screamed the same message, stay away. But behind the curtain, something else was happening. The US government wasn't just watching Bitcoins, they were taking it. Seized in raid against Silk Road, criminal cartels, darknet hackers. Thousands of coins at a time, piling up in government wallet. In 2023, the Department of Justice quietly announced the seizure of about 50,000 bitcoins, worth more than $3 billion at that time, from a single hacker. Just one bust, bigger than the entire country's reserve. And that was only one case. Over the years, those seizures have added up. Analysts estimate that the US control more than 200,000 bitcoins today, making Washington one of the single biggest Bitcoin whales on earth. Bigger than most nations, bigger than Tesla, bigger than MicroStrategy. But here's the part they don't want you to ask. Why keep it? If Bitcoin is so dangerous, why not sell it immediately? Why not destroy it? Instead, they're holding it, slowly auctioning off small pieces, but sitting on the majority like it's buried treasure. This is the double game. Publicly, Bitcoin is dismissed as risky, dangerous, unstable. Privately, it is treated like a strategic reserve, like digital oil. Just like America built massive stockpiles of petroleum to protect its economy in times of crisis, it's now stockpiling bitcoins to protect its power in the future. And think about what that means for you. When you tried to buy bitcoins, you were told it was reckless. But when government hoard it, it is called policy. When you lose money on inflation, they shrug. But when they see Bitcoin as hedge against collapse, they quietly prepare a storm you are not supposed to see it coming. So, the real question isn't about how much Bitcoin America has. The real question is this: what do they plan to do with it? And to answer that, we need to look at how the US sees Bitcoin not as investment but as weapon. Chapter 3: Bitcoin as Weapon. What if I told you Bitcoin isn't just an investment, it is a weapon? A weapon that US government can use to defend the dollar or to wage financial war against its enemy. And the scariest part, that weapon could also be turned against you. To understand why America is secretly stockpiling bitcoins, you have to think like a superpower. This isn't about profit, it's about control. The United States had built its dominance on one thing above all: the dollar. The dollar isn't about money, it is lifeblood of global trade. Oil, gas, food, metals, all priced in dollar. Every country from France to Saudi Arabia to Japan needs dollar to buy what they need. And that gave America unmatched power. The power to sanction countries, freeze assets, cut off entire economies from the global system with few keystrokes. But here's a nightmare scenario Washington sees. What if the world stopped needing dollars? What if another system, faster, cheaper, outside US control, start replacing it? That's where Bitcoin comes in. On the surface, Bitcoins look like a threat to the dollar. It's decentralized. No government owns it. No central bank controls it. But from another angle, Bitcoin is a weapon the US could use against its enemies. Imagine this. China tries to build its own digital currency to challenge the dollar. Russia pushes to trade oil in rubles instead of greenbacks. But the US, it quietly flips the script, holding massive amount of Bitcoin as an alternative reserve. Now Washington has an ace card. If the dollar weakens, it can backstop its power with Bitcoin, something no rival can fully control. And this is the place where it gets more and more dangerous. Bitcoin isn't just money, it's data. It moves instantly across borders without permission. That means the US could use Bitcoin in covert operations, sanctions evasions, even cyber warfare. It could turn Bitcoin into a geopolitical chess piece, moving billions at the speed of light while pretending it doesn't even exist on the balance sheet. But there's a flip side. Because if the US can weaponize Bitcoin, it can weaponize it against you. Imagine new tax rule, new tracking system, new digital ID requirement linked to your Bitcoin wallet. Imagine Bitcoin prices manipulated not by market but by government strategy. Imagine your saving turns into collateral in a game you never agreed to play. And here is the chilling truth. This isn't speculations. We have already seen glimpses of it. Governments around the world are racing to create central bank digital currency. Controlled, programmable money. Every transaction tracked, every dollar watched, and if Bitcoin becomes the part of that system, the very freedom it promised could vanish. So ask yourself, if the US really sees Bitcoin as a weapon, who is that weapon aimed at? Other countries or us? To find the answer, we have to look at the playbook Washington is quietly following right now. And what's happening next could hit your job, your savings, and your future harder than you think. Chapter 4: Your Money at Risk. What if I told you This isn't some abstract government game that while Washington stockpiles Bitcoin, the fallout could hit you directly in your paycheck, your saving account, and even the cost of milk at your grocery store. Here's the truth most Americans don't realize your financial life is already hanging by a thread. Inflation isn't just about number on a chart. It's your weekly grocery bill climbing higher. It's rent rising faster than your paycheck. It's your retirement plan losing value even while you keep working harder than ever. Now add the Bitcoin strategy into this fragile equation. If the US government is holding Bitcoin as a hedge, what does that tell you? It tells you that they know something big is coming. It tells you they don't fully trust the dollar to hold its value forever. It tells you that they are preparing for a storm while the rest of us are left standing outside without an umbrella. Let's break it down. Imagine inflation spikes again. Your $100 bill suddenly buys what $70 bill used to. If the government leans on Bitcoin as part of its reserve, it could protect itself, but not you. Washington has its hedge. You are left holding paper that keeps shrinking. Or take jobs. If the dollar weakens globally, imports cost more. Companies cut costs, layoff follows. But what happens if the government props itself with Bitcoin reserve while ordinary family can't access that safety net? It creates a two-tier economy. The insider protected, the outsider struggling to keep the lights on. And what about savings? Many Americans keep their money in bank, in retirement account, in dollars. But what happens when the government decides to manage Bitcoin price to protect its own interest? Suddenly, market swings not because of supply and demand, but because Washington needs to balance its book. Your retirement, collateral damage. Even the price of everyday essential food, gas, housing can get caught in this. If Bitcoin becomes a backstop for US financial policy, volatility will ripple out into everything else. One day groceries are affordable. The next day, prices skyrocket not because of natural markets, but because your government is playing chess with the currency behind your back. And here's the kicker. While you are told to stay away from Bitcoin, the government uses your tax dollar to enforce laws, fund seizures, and build the very reserve they benefit from. You pay the cost, they reap the hedge. This isn't just unfair, it's dangerous. Because it creates a future where your financial survival depends on your hard work, not on your savings discipline, but on secret strategies made in Rome you will never see. But here's the scarier question. What happens if the US plan doesn't work out? What happens if Bitcoin doesn't save the dollar, but instead accelerates its downfall? Because if that happens, the chaos won't just hit Wall Street, it will hit Main Street and every family in America. Chapter 5: The Plan Could Backfire. What if the US government's Bitcoin strategy isn't genius at all? What if it is a ticking time bomb? One that could actually destroy the very dollar it's supposed to protect. Because if this plan backfires, the fallout could make the 2008 financial crisis look like a minor hiccup. Here's the thing about the power plays. They don't always go as planned. And Washington's quiet Bitcoin hoarding is one of the riskiest gambles in modern financial history. Because Bitcoin isn't like gold. It's not stable. It's not predictable. It's not under government control. It's volatile, wildly volatile. So ask yourself this. What happens if the government holds billions in Bitcoin reserves and the price crashes? What happens if the market doesn't move the way you expect? The US balance sheets takes a hit, that's not just bad for the government, that is bad for you. Because when the government loses money, it prints more. And when it prints more, your dollar buys less. But the nightmare scenario goes even deeper. Imagine this. The US leans on Bitcoin as a backup to the dollar. Other countries seize it. They realize America has no plan B outside of Bitcoin. What do? They buy Bitcoins. They start trading with each other outside the dollar system. They don't need Washington's permission anymore. The dollar loses its monopoly. Suddenly, the very tool America thought would strengthen its grip becomes the blade that cut it loose. And when the dollar falls, it doesn't fall quietly. It takes everything with it. Your savings, your retirement, your job, your rent. Because the dollar isn't just America's money, it is the world's money. If that system cracks, the shockwaves hits every corner of the global economy. We have seen previews of this. Inflation spikes, bank collapses, supply chain chaos. But imagine all of this at once triggered by a miscalculation at the highest level of government. Imagine watching headlines scroll across your phone. Dollar drops 30% in a week. Panic buys sweep across US stores, market frozen. And here's the haunting part. The very leader who told you not to buy Bitcoin will still be holding it. They'll have the hedge, you won't. Your paycheck, useless against skyrocketing cost. This isn't fear-mongering. This is history repeat itself in digital age. Every empire that thought it could control money forever, Rome, Britain, Spain, eventually watched its currency collapse. The difference this time? It could happen faster. Not in decades, not in years, but in months. And if that day comes, it won't just be a financial collapse. It would be the collapse of trust, trust in the government, trust in bank, trust in the very money in your pocket. So, if the plan could backfire this badly, the question is, what can you do about it? How do you protect yourself when most powerful government in the world is gambling with the money in your wallet? In the next chapter, we will talk about survival, not theories, but real steps you need to know. Chapter 6. How to protect yourself. If the US government is secretly hoarding Bitcoin while telling you not to, if the dollar's future is hanging by a thread, the real question is, how do you protect yourself? Because when the storm hits, no one in the Washington is coming to save you or your wallet. You are on your own. The truth is, most American lives paycheck to paycheck. They are told to trust the banks, keep money in a saving account, contribute to retirement fund, and everything will be fine. But what happens when inflation eats the saving alive? So let's talk about survival. The first step is awareness. Understanding that the system you were told to blindly trust isn't built to protect you. It is built to protect itself. Washington will print more money to save itself. The Federal Reserve will raise or cut interest to save itself. And when they stockpile bitcoins, it is not to make your grocery bill cheaper. It is to hedge against their own mistake. The second step is diversification. No, this doesn't mean go all in on Bitcoin tomorrow. That's gambling, not strategy. But it does mean thinking beyond dollar. What if a small percentage of your saving was in assets that government can't print out in thin air? Maybe that's Bitcoin. Maybe it's gold. Maybe it's even foreign currencies or commodities. The point isn't which one. It is that you don't put every egg in a basket that's on fire. The third step is education. Too many people let fear paralyze them. They read headlines, they panic. They don't act, but knowledge is power. Understanding how inflation works, understanding why government hoard bitcoins, understanding how monetary policy trickles down to your rent, your gas, your paycheck. The more you know, the less they can blindside you. And the final step, community. Alone you are vulnerable, but when millions of people share knowledge, share strategies, demand transparency, it's harder for the system to keep you in the dark. That's why videos like this matters. Not because they give you all the answers, but because they start conversation the government doesn't want you to have. So let me ask you, do you really believe Washington is hoarding bitcoins for your benefit? Or do you think they are preparing for a storm, leaving you exposed? And if that's the case, isn't it time for you to prepare for yourself? This is only the beginning, because what happens if the Federal Reserve, the heart of America's financial system, actually loses control? If you think this Bitcoin strategy is shocking, wait until you hear what could happen to banks, inflation, and your job if the Fed itself breaks down. That's in our next video. And if you thought tonight's video was shocking, you cannot miss what's coming next. So hit subscribe, turn on notification, and join me in the next video. Trust me, this is only the beginning.